Week 5 predictions. Let's go. Last week, week 4, man, it was a great week. A lot of great games. This week, naturally, it's just going to seem a little underwhelming compared to what we got last week, but there's still some great games. There's a handful of ranked matchups still. There's 4 ranked matchups this week, which, a normal week, 4 ranked matchups is pretty good. But compared to last week, this is like, it's an underwhelming week, but hey, I'm looking forward to it. It's going to be another week per usual in the sport of college football. That's going to be great. Let's start off with a couple Friday night games here off the bat between Louisville and NC State. Louisville is a 3-point favorite. NC State coming off of a squeaker against Virginia last week. Louisville, they're in cruise control right now. They're undefeated, and they got some ACC championship aspirations with a relatively light schedule this year. They're only a 3-point favorite in Raleigh. What do you see happening here?
I'll take Louisville both ways. Like you alluded to, they're firing on all cylinders. I think Plummer has a day, and I think Armstrong makes a couple mistakes that cost the Wolfpack. So, and I think honestly, I like Braum over Doran if I had to do the coaching aspect as well.
I mean, those are 2 good coaches for sure, but I'm with you. This NC State team is just not as good as I think they would want to be this year. A little bit underwhelming. Definitely concerning to only be beating Virginia by 3 points last week. Louisville, they haven't really necessarily looked dominant against really inferior competition either. So it's really tough to read this game, if I'm being honest, but I got to go with Plummer over Brendan Armstrong. And I agree with you. I think slight coaching advantage to Louisville, and I'm going to take them to cover the 3 points there and win this game outright. I think Louisville has sort of a gear to turn on that maybe we haven't seen just yet, and this is sort of a big game for them. So I like Louisville. Zan also is Louisville both ways, so we got the Cardinals across the board here. No faith in the Wolfpack. So it'll be an interesting one.
Oh boy.
How
Wolfpack
about
got
a
this one.
ranked matchup? Another Friday night matchup, man. It's going to be a good doubleheader Friday night. Pac-12 chaos. Number 10, Utah, coming off a rock fight against UCLA, going on the road to face Oregon State, who lost a heartbreaker to Wazoo. Oregon State, they're still reeling a little bit, but they're still ranked. They still got a lot ahead of them. And Utah has been doing all this with backup quarterbacks and all. So the Beavers are a 2-point favorite in this one. That's an interesting line. What do you see here?
The real play here is the under, but as for our purposes, I like the Beavs. Keep building the dam. Utah backup quarterbacks playing on the road. The game being on the road is the big swing for me, and I like DJU versus not Cam Rising in the quarterback matchup. And I mean, this really could be like 14-10, but I like the Beavs to win at home.
This is going to be a freaking rock fight. I'm with you. Lots of running the ball, a lot of low scoring, a lot of physicality. I think the difference in this game is definitely going to be quarterback play because both teams have the same style. And I really do think Oregon State, it's Friday night. They're coming back home. Being at home is a huge advantage. I think Oregon State is too good of a team to lose 2 in a row. And I know Utah's been great, but if you look at the home and road splits for Utah, they are a totally different team at home versus on the road. They play a little bit more vulnerable. I like OSU in this one. I think the Beavs are in store for a bounce back. And, Utah's been doing this with backup quarterbacks and all. I'm just going to not assume that Rising and Keithy are playing. I'm just not going to assume they are until they finally do. So I'm assuming, again, it's going to be Nate Johnson. But either way, Utah, they're pretty fortunate to be 4-0, all things considered. I think they finally have a loss here. It'd be pretty remarkable if they get to 5-0 with all these guys that have been injured and with backup quarterbacks. This would be probably the most impressive of those feats, in my opinion, if they pull this one out on the road. But I like the Beaver bounce back here at home. And as far as Zan, he disagrees with us. He's going Utah. Utah both ways. Spread is under a field goal, so we got to pick both sides here. So Zan's going Utah. I like it. All right. Florida versus Kentucky. We are now on to the Saturday games. Florida into the top 25. They're number 22 now, moving ahead a few spots. They are on the road going to Lexington to face the Wildcats, who are a 3-point favorite. What do you got here?
So, you can only use history as a context provider for so long. So, Kentucky's won the last two, you know, won the last time in Lexington. Majority of the games in Lexington are absolute nail biters. I hate to do this, but I'm going to go Kentucky the full way. I think the road environment is raucous, and Kentucky seems to get up for this game more than UF does. I think Kentucky takes this rivalry a little more serious than UF does. And I mean, I do believe UF may have sleptwalked through Charlotte in preparation for this game, but I really think Kentucky just cares more. And I think they win another tight one out there at Kroger Field.
Zan is going with the Gators. He likes the Gators to win and cover plus 3 points on the road and win as an outright underdog. I'm going to go with the Gators. I think UF is the better team, and I know it is at Kentucky, which definitely plays into Kentucky's hands here. Going into this game, I would not have expected to say that I thought Florida has the better team, but let's be honest here. Devin Leary has not been that great this year, and I'm a big Devin Leary fan. He has not looked sharp at all. 9 touchdowns, 5 interceptions, under 60% completion percentage. And it's not like they've been playing some good teams here. Kentucky's played some very bad teams to start the year. Ball State, EKU, Akron, Vanderbilt. Like, we haven't seen Kentucky play a good team yet. It's going to be a believe it to see it with me, unless they've been hiding some stuff that I'm not aware of. I got to go with Florida. Florida's more proven. They play better teams. And like you said, Florida was sleepwalking against Charlotte. I think they can get it done on the road, but I think this is going to be a low-scoring game. If there are turnovers in this game, that's going to be crucial in this one because both these teams are going to try to run the ball. Both these teams don't necessarily have explosive offenses. Both defenses are improved. I think this is going to be a low-scoring game. I trust Graham Mertz more so than Devin Leary, which would have sounded a little asinine coming out of my mouth a few months ago. Put it that way. But we're 4 weeks in the season now, and things have changed. So I'm going to trust Florida over Kentucky. So we got me and Zan on the Gators. Gonzo is on Kentucky, trying to make it a 3-game streak against Florida. All right. Let's talk about some teams that are really reeling. Colorado is reeling after that beatdown against Oregon last week. USC coming off of a sleepwalker against Arizona State. They are really messing around with the Sun Devils in Tempe. And they're a 23.5-point favorite on the road in Boulder. Is there a bounce back in store for Colorado? And if there is, can they win this game outright or will they just cover this spread? Because it's a pretty big spread.
So the big factor for me is USC's defense. They're going to win the game, no problem. But I will give Dion and Colorado some credit. I think they cover. I don't think USC's defense is the level that Oregon's defense is. And I think Colorado has the Oregon game to take from and learn from that experience. And this is a 10 a.m. kickoff in Boulder. So you have a time change in the home crowd in your favor. It's very possible that USC just doesn't even score enough to even be within the threshold of covering this because it is an early as can be game. So obviously the Trojans will win this game, but the Buffs, I definitely think they can keep it within 3 touchdowns and a little change.
Yeah, the spread is what makes this one really interesting to me. We all know USC is going to win. We're all picking USC to win outright. Zan is picking USC to win outright, and he's with you. He likes Colorado to cover that 23.5-point spread. As mentioned, the spread is where I'm a little caught off here. I completely agree with everything you said. The stats back it up. USC's defense not necessarily as good as Oregon. There's probably going to be a lot more points scored in this one than there was in the Oregon game. I think Colorado will put up some points too. I mean, hell, Arizona State was able to do it. Arizona State's like a zombie team right now. I think USC will be able to score at will. And I I hate to do this, but I got to go USC spread. I
I love
think
it.
USC, and again, it's not me hating on Colorado. This is tough for me, but I'm going to lay the 23.5 with USC. I think that they pull away and get enough explosive plays to win by 28, somewhere in that range. I think a little more than 23.5. But yeah, the spread is definitely tough here in this one. All
I
right.
like that.
This one,
Damn
now this
connection.
one I legitimately think is a very interesting game. Clemson is a 6.5 point favorite on the road at the undefeated 4-0 Syracuse Orange. Now, historically, last year included, Syracuse gives Clemson some fits. They almost beat them last year. Remember that game last year?
Oh yeah.
This year, it's
Well, I
up at the
bet that.
Dome. This year, it's up at the Dome. If you are Clemson, if you're Dabo Sweeney, that is an absolute heartbreaking loss you took last week to FSU. They were arguably the better team for majority of that game. They probably should have won that game against FSU. How do you get the team's mindset? How do you get your season back on track here? You're now 0-2 in ACC play. Now you're going to go up to Syracuse to the Dome to face a 4-0 Dino Babers coached Orange team. What do you think is going to happen here?
So, like you've alluded to, it's a unique position for Clemson to be in. You're not usually in this situation where your season, for all intents and purposes, is over before October. However, I think Dabo Sweeney, all his criticisms aside, and however, people may think about the man, he does do a good job at securing buy-in. And I think this is a group that is not going to quit on him, no matter the record, the score, whatever situation. So I do think Clemson goes up there and wins the game at Syracuse. But I think Garrett Schrader and company make it a little sweaty. This maybe could be one that is a field goal game going into the fourth. So I'll take the Qs to cover.
All right. Gonzo's got the Cuse covering, but Clemson winning outright. Zan is rolling with the Tigers. He's going with Clemson winning, Clemson covering that spread as well. This spread being at 6.5, it's kind of baiting me to take Clemson, and I think that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go with the Clemson bounce back here. I was really leaning towards taking Syracuse here, and I legitimately think an upset is in play here. Garrett Schrader has been a hero for Syracuse so far. I mean,
Oh, yeah.
not only is the leading passer, of course, he's the quarterback. He's done well. He's also their leading rusher. He's
About his
tied
top
for the
target.
team lead in rushing touchdowns, and he's leading them in rushing yards as well. I mean, Garrett Schrader's a good player. Syracuse hasn't necessarily played the best team so far. And you know what? If we get what we saw from a majority of that game from Clemson, they are good enough to go on the road and win this game and cover. But yeah, you got to be careful. If this is a letdown, this is a loss for Clemson. So let's hope if you're a Clemson fan that doesn't happen. But this is interesting. But I'm gonna say Clemson can get it done for me, Zan as well, especially with the spread. All right, now this one. Speaking of letdowns, Georgia's been a letdown so far, and Auburn has been a letdown so far. But this is the Deep South's oldest rivalry. So we got to pick it. Georgia is a 16-point favorite on the plains, on the road at Auburn. What do we see happening here?
Georgia both ways. Auburn doesn't have the horses.
All right,
And
short
I
and simple.
think Georgia gets a defensive touchdown. None of those quarterbacks for Auburn scare me.
Zan is with you. He's going Georgia both ways here. Well, what happened last time that we all thought Georgia was a slam dunk to win and cover?
Huge letdown
Yeah, they did not cover against
at
South
home.
Carolina. In fact, they were losing at halftime. Yeah. Um, I want to say Georgia wins and Georgia covers, but I don't know. Georgia has just they've been asleep in the first half of all these games. They legitimately seem like they don't care. They don't look good for the first half of all these games. And Auburn's at home. Like, how much worse can it be than it was last week? Can they get more than like 56 yards passing?
I would
Probably. I
hope.
mean, you can't. How much worse can you be than that? Yeah. this is just tough, man. This is cruel that I'm the one that picks these games or chooses this games to be picked. This is cruel of us having to take this as a spread pick. I'm going to go UGA to win and screw it. I'm going to go UGA to cover. For goodness sakes, Georgia, if you can't cover this,
Then
like,
I'm not touching it again.
yeah, like,
I'm not touching any spread of theirs.
yeah, my spread record, as you can see on the screen, is not looking that great. But for God's sake, Georgia, please, like, just kick it into gear and do what you're supposed to do. But yeah,
A bold prediction though, if Auburn wins.
it would be, but things change, and so far, I'll take that bold prediction off the board based on what I've seen so far. All right, back into the Big 12, Kansas and Texas. In 2021, this was the most memeable game of the season. It's a ranked matchup this year. Texas is at home, and they're a 17-point favorite. This will be one of the final times we will get to see these two teams play each other for probably a while, unless they meet in the bowl game. So what do you got here?
I like Texas to win the game. Shoob, do you know who Texas plays next week?
Oh, I know who they got next week. They got Boomer
Ex-
Sooner.
exactly. KU to cover. I don't think it's a blowout like it was last year. I do think when you have OU looming to potentially decide at least the regular season championship, I think part of that is factored in, kind of like you saw with the Rice game before Bama. And Kansas has the athletes and the quarterback to at least keep this thing within 2 touchdowns and a field goal, I think, and maybe lose the game by 2 touchdowns when it's all said and done. I mean, for goodness sakes, Wyoming covered against this team, and we know Wyoming's good. But short and sweet, Texas wins, KU covers.
Zan is going with Texas to win and Texas to cover. So he's looking for a
Okay.
Texas multiple score blowout.
Beat down.
You know what, man? I went into this segment thinking I was going to take KU to cover that spread for the exact same reasons that you mentioned, but I am not going to do that. I am going to hook them both ways here. I think this Texas team just might be different. This might be the year. I mean, they might be the best team in the country. Like, I think that's fair to say. They might be the best
About
team in the
time.
country so far. Yeah. I think they blow them out, even though I'm very high on this Kansas team, and I think Kansas will be able to put up points against Texas, but I think Texas can win and cover here, and they're at home. But it'll be interesting to see if they are really truly looking ahead to OU. I think that'll be evident early on in this game. All right, let's go back to the G5. We got to give the G5 some love here. Boise State and Memphis. This is truly a toss-up game. Memphis is at home. Interesting non-conference matchup too. The Mountain West versus the American, two of the best programs in both of those respective conferences playing each other. Memphis is a 2.5-point favorite at home. And if you look at the power rankings, these two are like dead even right next to each other. So if this was on a neutral field, this would be a pick 'em. That's how even these two teams are. So which way we flipping the coin, Gonzo?
Man, this is so hard.
And
Like
that's why I threw it on
I,
here. We don't make
I,
it easy on ourselves.
I I like Taylor Green and that running back I mentioned in our recap segment for Boise, and I like Hennigan from Memphis. I will take the Tigers of Memphis in a toss up, and let's see what happens. Just
Flipping the coin, baby.
yes, that's what this is.
Zan is going to go with Boise State. So Zan is definitely taking a different route here this week on some of these picks. He's trying to recoup after last week. He took a big hit, even though he's still killing us with the
Yeah.
spread so far. Well, you mentioned Boise State's running back. I like Memphis's running back too. Blake Watson, he's an NFL running back. If you
Oh
don't know
yeah,
him by
man.
now, he's going to be an NFL running back on a roster in another year or two, averaging 5.9 yards per carry. Give me Memphis. I'm rolling with you. So we are gonna fade Zan this week with some of these toss-up picks. I like Memphis at home. And yeah, man, this is gonna be a great game. This is two evenly matched teams. If there's not a lot of good games on this week, this will be a fun G5 matchup. And it should be a good game either way. All right. LSU at Ole Miss. The 13th ranked Tigers are a 2.5 point favorite on the road against number 20 Ole Miss, who just cannot get it done against Bama. Go watch our recap video if you haven't watched it. We go deep dive into these games. If you love college football, go watch our recap videos. We talked about this. We talked about Lane Kiffin really was chirping. I don't think he's going to be doing any chirping this week. I don't think that would be very wise of him. But what do you think is going to happen here?
LSU both ways. I think they punished Jackson Dart like they did in Death Valley last year.
Zan is with you. He's going to LSU both ways. They are just a 2.5 point favorite. I'm with you. I see LSU playing a good game here, and I agree with you. I think Ole Miss is not necessarily quite as good as we maybe would have thought. And Jackson Dart took some shots last week against Alabama. Is he going to be fully 100% in this game? I think that's a big factor here. I like LSU, and I like LSU to guaranteed bounce back versus how they played against Arkansas. So LSU all the way here across the board. Notre Dame. Now, this one is sneaky. This was a sneaky good matchup, man. And you want to talk about letdown spots? We talking about
It's game
Clemson
day.
coming off. You want to talk about Clemson coming off a heartbreaking loss and having a trap game? This is Notre Dame coming off of a completely devastating loss. And now you got to go on the road to face Duke, who's quietly a very good ranked team that's extremely well coached. Like this just screams letdown game right here. What do you think happens?
If Duke takes this, my 10-win bold predictions essentially is secured. That being said, I think Notre Dame both ways. I think Duke caught Clemson so off guard in week 1, and they just were not expecting that. Notre Dame has a very good defense, so I think they can scheme enough to keep Riley Leonard in check. And Tim Hartman's still a very good quarterback. So I like Notre Dame to win this one. I'm also kind of going on some experience where I faded Notre Dame in these attractive non-Clemson, non-FSU ACC games and gotten burned. So I'm licking my wounds and just putting it all on the Irish this time around.
Zan is taking Notre Dame to win, but he thinks Duke is going to cover that 4.5 point spread. So he thinks Duke is going to lose by 4 points or less. So clearly he's, I'll speak for him. He's definitely thinks it's going to be a close game and sort of hedging here. This is so tough for me, dude. I want to take Duke so badly. And you laid it out perfectly right there. This is such a typical game where I would fade the hell out of Notre Dame. We love Duke so much. We're all big Duke.
We do.
We're a Duke pod this year. But you know what I've learned from my spread record? My straight up picks record is doing fine. I have the same record as Zan, but for some reason, I just cannot get on the right side of these damn spreads. I hate to do this, but I'm a man of principle. Notre Dame is still a top 10 team. Duke is a top 20 team. Notre Dame goes in there and they win. They go down to Durham and they win. I'm going to take Notre Dame to win. And, I'm going to be a sicko and take Notre Dame to cover as well. I'm with you. Even though I really want to take Duke to cover that, I'm going to do it. If Duke wins this game or if Duke covers, I'm going to be kicking myself because I damn sure went into this like guns ablazing saying I'm going to take Duke on the upset. Oh, man. Being a man of discipline and principle is tough sometimes, but you have to respect Notre Dame after what you saw, and I'm going to respect Notre Dame. But man, I'm not gonna lie, man. I might be pulling for Duke. I might be pulling against my pick here. I would like to see Duke win, and I would love to see your bold prediction come true. That would be nuts. That would be absolutely nuts.
that would make up for a lot of bad takes right there.
Yes, Duke it would.
Went in 110 regular season games.
I mean,
which I don't think they've ever done.
Listen, if Duke does win this game, though, like holy cow. Duke would have a Clemson win and a Notre Dame win on their resume. They'd be 5-0. We'd have to start taking Duke very, very seriously if they win this game. So be ready for it, college football fans. If Duke wins this game, you need to really start paying attention to Duke if you haven't been already. All right. Well, that should be a great matchup. I can't wait for it. Those are going to be two NFL guys, Sam Hartman versus Riley Leonard in that matchup. It's going to be a great game either way. Duke is not going to get blown out by any means, even though me and you are taking Notre Dame to win and cover. All right, man. Another great week of picks ahead. I'm looking forward to it. Any last words before we cut the cord here on Week 5 picks?
I'm excited as we prepare to go into October. Personally, my favorite month of the year. So I'm very excited for this last week of action to close out September.
Amen to that. All right. For Gonzo, Shoob, and our brother Zan, who is not here today, this is the Saturday Scholars College Football Podcast. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. We will see y'all later. Signing out. Have a great day.